So Ohio State will open at Indiana, as we're joined now by Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. And Gerd, could we see Ohio State opening up against Michigan in the future?
You know, that was kind of the surprise that came out of this session today with Ryan Day when he brought it up on his own, talking about Michigan, how maybe they might want to have discussions on moving the game from the last game of the season to somewhere else, just because of the possibility moving forward of playing that game back-to-back weeks, which is something that he sure didn't seem all that enthused about.
Yeah, the point he made was, are we going to minimize the game by playing 1 week later and maybe even playing 3 times in a row with the expanded playoffs?
Yeah, and I thought he explained it well, because wanting to change anything about the rivalry is going to cause all kinds of issues. But he said it was so that you move the game further back or move it up so that it maintains the meaning and it stays as important as it has been forever. Because if both teams go in at, say, 11-0, or they both have already clinched their Big Ten championship game berth, his concern is that it doesn't mean as much, because it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, because you're still going to be playing against each other the next week. So his thought is, if you move it earlier in the season, the importance stays. It stays as important as ever. However, what about the years where they don't meet in the Big Ten championship game? What have you done to harm that rivalry now by moving it?
For the second straight year, Ohio State's answering questions about how they regroup after losing to Michigan. It seems like we heard a lot of these same answers 365 days ago.
Yeah, when that's the lasting impression of the season, and this is the first time a lot of other people are here to talk to you about it from around the nation, around the rest of the conference, you're going to be revisiting those questions, and the team may have moved on, the coaches may have moved on, but it kind of just gets, refreshed here. And so, yeah, you're going to have to answer those questions. And he's talked about they've used it as motivation. They've used they've kept the mentality that they took into the Georgia game about, how he even said it against Michigan. They didn't handle the problems, the bad turns in the second half well. And so they went into Michigan just swinging away, not worrying about any kind of mistakes. And they've carried that forward through the offseason. And really, if they can take that mentality through the 2023 season, I think that's how they should play, with that kind of mentality.
2 big questions on the Ohio State offense, the offensive line and the quarterback. Those are 2 pretty big questions.
Yeah, if you're going to have 2 questions on the offensive line, those are the 2 you don't want. And he was asked, which is more of a concern, the quarterback or the right tackle? He's like, I don't know that I can answer that because I haven't seen them play. And in terms of, he's seen them play, but you haven't seen them on the field in a game and how they respond and how they perform. And so until you have those facts in front of you, you're going to have concerns. I do think they've addressed the offensive line concerns as much as they have. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned Luke Montgomery, freshman offensive lineman out of Findlay, as a guy who he's going to be in that competition for perhaps the right tackle spot. And so they've got more bodies than they did maybe in the spring or coming out of last season. So they've got some options. I think they're going to be fine at quarterback. That's just what we've come to expect under Ryan Day.
He did backtrack a little bit, saying, I'm not saying Luke Montgomery's going to play against Indiana. I'm not saying he's going to play this year, but he's got a huge upside. Let's talk about the other side of the ball. It's year 2 for Jim Knowles. Are we going to see a big leap in terms of defense, particularly with those explosive plays, which is what hurt them against Michigan and Georgia?
Yeah, and I don't even know if you need a leap. I think the leap would happen just by not allowing the big plays, because as long as they're not allowing those big plays, they're a top 10 defense, top 15 defense. It's the big plays that, drop that number. So you eliminate those, and he talked about just going through and seeing what the issues were against Michigan, correcting those. I think what we saw in the spring and what you'll continue to see in fall camp is this is the second year in the program, in the defense for these guys. And so they're going to be, faster. Their timing is better. They talked about it in the spring. Defense is getting their hands on a lot more balls in terms of pass deflections and knowing where the play is going, where it's designed to push a guy out. And this is the first time in everybody's career on that defense where they've been in the same system 2 years in a row. So, and that includes Josh Proctor, who is a 6th-year senior. So that tells you all the upheaval and just issues they've had defensively. So there's some familiarity on defense that they finally have.
All right, thank you very much. A lot more on Ohio State from Tony and his cohorts at BuckeyeHuddle.com. More of this conversation can be found on BCSNNation.com as well.